From Provo, Utah, this is the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast with your hosts, Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss. This is Ultima Final Fantasy. Welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. I am Joe.
And I am Caleb.
And today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VI.
Yes.
And just so you know, this episode is brought to you by Jimmy Allback. We're not sure if he wanted us to say anything, but he did give us a generous donation via PayPal on our site and helped us, pay for the show a little bit. And we just want to say thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, any little bit is awesome for us, So
that's true. Yeah, guys.
Thank you, guys. And
it costs us what, like $46 a month to keep the show rolling. There's a breakdown on our site.
I think it's probably less than that for the actual just pure cost of the.
Libsyn costs $20. The website costs like $250, and then Adobe Suite.
Oh,
so
the
that our
Adobe.
sound quality is better than it is on Audacity. The Adobe Suite is another $27 a month.
Oh, I forgot about the freaking Adobe.
But I would normally have the Adobe anyway because I need Premiere for school. So that cost, the $27 on top of that is, I would already have to pay for it.
I see. Yeah, so
but the 23 or so.
Yeah, that's our.
We're
our
still in the
bare
hole,
minimum.
but yeah, Jimmy Allback helped a good chunk of that out this month.
So this episode brought to you by Jimmy Allback.
Brought to you by Jimmy Allback, and I'll go ahead and say dedicated to Jimmy Allback.
Oh, even better. So yeah, we as you guys know from the minisode Joe released last night, we didn't get it done in time necessarily, but we didn't want to come out with some last-minute episode on Sunday, so we just rolled over to today. And he took out Kefka last night, and I woke up this morning and dominated
and did the last. You had to beat a couple statues, too.
I did. Well, the statues were sick because of the party split up. But, yeah, I took care of that, and now we are ready.
Yeah, we wanted a full review. We went back and did a bunch of extra stuff, and we didn't want to come out with an episode without having beat 6.
Yeah, it would be shameful.
So
at this point,
this episode is very late. It's we usually come out Monday morning we usually come out on Sunday midnight. Usually, yeah. Sometimes we'll do it just Sunday during the day. And it's gonna be probably about 5:00 when this episode's released. So
yeah,
that'll be fun. 5:00 Mountain Standard Time, the United States.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get to our review of 6, but first, we got a couple items of news that we have to go over.
Oh, let's do it. Let's get that out of the way first.
News. Okay, so there was another quote by Hajime Tabata who said that the game, I guess, was 50 to 60% complete.
15
for Final Fantasy 15, but he had already said 55 a couple weeks ago, so this isn't really news.
Yeah, unless it's 50, and then why did he lie to us? But we can't really know.
It's an estimation, that's all it is, so.
Still.
Yeah, whatever. There's really only 2 pieces of news here, and they're both Final Fantasy 14 news. So most of our listeners won't really care that much, but
a few of you.
A few of them will. Ultros and Typhon which is Ultros' pink friend that we had to fight in Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
I think he was by a different name, though. I don't remember that being his name.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure
our
it was
version is it's probably different. Anyway, you can fight them at the Dragon's Neck Coliseum with the 2.4 update for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. So that's pretty cool. Also, the biggest piece of news is
there is a Super Hog status edition of A Realm Reborn, the Game of the Year edition. And
it's coming out November 14th.
November 14th. And if you guys don't have it or just have a lot of money lying around, you can pick this up. It's got all sorts of extra crap in it. I mean, what is that?
It's got a printed book along with art cards and 90 days of subscription included.
Oh yeah, that's pretty sweet.
So that
how much is it?
That's pretty awesome. It doesn't say on IGN how much it is, but
that's probably gonna be a lot.
It's probably not. It can't be that ridiculous.
No, I mean it's mostly just artwork stuff, cards. But you know, I always think that, and then I look at the special editions of these games coming out, and I'm like, oh, it takes me like 3 days.
All right, well, I think that's it for the news.
I think so.
Wow, just no news this week.
Yeah, and you know, the Tabata thing, it's like repeat news.
Let's go on. Let's go on to what we've all been waiting for. Final Fantasy VI.
So let's get into the development of the game.
Final Fantasy VI's development began with the release of Final Fantasy V, and it took about 1 year to complete, maybe a little bit more than 1 year. It said they started development in December of 92, and of course they ended development with the release of the game in April of 94. Hironobu Sakaguchi was the director of the previous 5 Final Fantasies, but he wasn't able to work on this one as directly as he was promoted to VP of Square. And so he took his directing duties and he split them up between Yoshinori Kitase, who he had worked with on Final Fantasy V, and Hiroyuki Ito. Basically, Kitase was in charge of the story, and Ito was in charge of big parts of the gameplay, like the battle system. Initially, the idea was that every character was the protagonist. Like, that's the thing that they started off on. Like, this was how they were going to, develop the game.
Right.
As this, basically the team is the protagonist. But, of course, I think there's a clear protagonist. I don't think they actually kept with that goal.
No, I could see it in the beginning, but we'll get into that later.
Exactly.
So every member of the development team had ideas for these characters, and it was just like a big melting pot of ideas, and everyone basically threw in their ideas, and the best ones, obviously, they made the characters. So Terra and Locke were conceived by Sakaguchi himself. Celes and Gao were created by Kitase. Shadow Setzer by Nomura, which we can totally tell with Shadow, especially his artwork.
Exactly, the dark, brooding anime figure.
Yeah.
That seems very Nomura-ish.
Yeah, and of course, the 2 greatest characters in the game, damage-wise, Edgar and Sabin, were brought in by Kaori Tanaka. So, yeah, Edgar and Sabin were a part of our party.
Thank you, Kaori.
Yeah, your contributions were great. So the episodes and scenario were created by Sakaguchi, were brought together by Kitase, who also wrote many of the big scenes, which we talked about last week.
Right. No, it's more like everybody kind of like, there were parts of the development team that each worked on an episode.
Oh, yeah.
And Sakaguchi, of course, had the main idea for 6 when 6 started, but he wasn't able to work on it that much.
Right, because he was
Kitase
VP.
took the episodes and the scenario that Sakaguchi did. He basically rewrote it all to make it into one big narrative, which of course is what Kitase is best for. When he writes a Final Fantasy, it's usually one of the better Final Fantasies.
Yeah, it's really good, and he fixes a lot.
I think he's the best storyteller on staff, but of course he stopped writing. So
yeah, he's more the editing. It's like such a huge thing for him. It makes it so godly. So this is also Yoshitaka Amano's final game where he's the lead artist for the characters.
Right, exactly. And You were talking about earlier how you wish we could see what his artwork would look like in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, it would have been. I think it'd be sweet.
I think it'd be sweet too. But of course, Nomura took over basically for the rest of the series as we know it, except for I think 12 was someone else.
I think so. It doesn't look the same at the very least.
Other designers who worked under Amano included Tetsuya Takahashi, who drew the Magitech armor for the opening scene. Notice how the Magitech armor in the long cutscene doesn't actually match the Magitech armor in the battle scenes.
Yeah.
That was one of the oversights. Anyway, he's known for that. And Kazuko Shibuya is known for drawing the complex sprites for the characters. And of course, that's something that stands apart, or that makes Final Fantasy VI stand apart from, let's say, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy V, and of course the previous 3, is just the amount of detail in the sprites and their animation is far greater than we'd seen previous in the series.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they look pretty good. And
It's really the pinnacle of 2D Final Fantasy design.
Yeah, it looks damn good considering we're playing the original port, and it's like, wow, this is some good designing.
It's not only the character animation though. It included the game included a larger use of Super NES's Mode 7 graphics, which were notably used in the opening credits and in the world map. It gives the 2D game a 3D look when it, of course, goes into Mode 7, and I think it really adds to the game. And, of course, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. The game was released on April 2nd of 1994, and it came to the States in October 20th, as well as Canada, I think. Other territories, however, didn't get the game until 2002 with Final Fantasy Anthology.
Right, and this explains a lot because one of our forum members, his name's FM, I believe, and he said something about like getting a demo for 10 when he bought 6. And when I read that the first time, I was like,
I think he's in Australia, right?
Yeah, he's in Australia. Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then when we went over the details of this game, I'm like, oh, that's way late. They're just like, oh yeah, we should release 6.
Exactly, and it was, of course, originally released here in the States as Final Fantasy III.
Yes.
Because, 5 wasn't released over here.
Or 3.
And neither was 3, and neither was 2.
Yeah.
4 was 2, and 6 was 3, which, of course, led to a lot of confusion when the next game to come out in the series here was Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, even though it's 4th one.
And they had to backtrack it with Final Fantasy Anthology and Final Fantasy Chronicles, who brought back the original Roman numerals for the game.
Yeah.
It's just a stupid thing. You have to kind of like clarify whenever you're talking to someone else about Final Fantasy. You're like, Final Fantasy VI. They're like, oh, I never played that one, but 3 was great.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in that situation?
I think I have. I talked to someone at a local game store here, Mario's, and I think they mentioned that they had played 3 and the first one, and that was it on the old ones, and then 7.
But of course they meant 6.
Yeah, they meant 6, and
it's like
3 they probably never played.
It's this dumb confusion. I guess on the Wii Virtual Console, I think it's still called 3 there too.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's what I heard last night anyway.
They're adding to the confusion by doing that.
It's 6.
Yeah, it's 6.
We're
Trust
gonna
us.
say it's 6, even if it has 3 eyes in a row. It means 6.
Yeah.
If it has
that by
a
2.
purple Moogle on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, although the game was released on schedule, there was a huge crunch near the end for a ridiculous debug phase, apparently, that Kitase was quoted as saying that it was an exhausting affair, the debug process on this game. As you know, Final Fantasy VI is filled with bugs, and we exploited one in particular quite a bit. There is a quote here by Nobou Uematsu, who stated about the release of the game. He says, I still remember when during the launch party for Final Fantasy VI, the notoriously unforgiving Mr. Sakaguchi gave a speech. And he said, thanks to every one of you. We have created the best game in the world. No, the universe. Thank you. I cried, says Nobou Uematsu.
Oh.
There were tears on my face. Those tears made me realize just how much I had invested myself in the project. I hope that the Final Fantasy games forever continue to be a source of joy, not only for the fans, but for the developers as well. This is, of course, probably Nobou Uematsu's second best known score as far as his games, and I would state probably his masterpiece as far as the musical tracks in this game. They're really stunning.
Yeah, it's good.
And yeah, that's it for as much as I know about development history. Where are we going from now, Caleb?
We are going to talk about the look of the game.
The look of the game. What do you have to say about that?
I think it looked really good. I mean, I know we had issues with 5. The color palette, like you mentioned, was like really stale. It just seemed kind of not pleasant to look at necessarily. And this one, I think looked great. I mean, there's all sorts of, they have a huge color palette. There's all sorts of colors everywhere. And before the world goes to ruin, the world looks really awesome. And there's all sorts of variations. And it kind of gets rid of the feel that there's this massive world, but like 7 towns in it. Some of the earlier games, I hated that, where
there was a little bit more population in this one. Sure.
Yeah, there were people, and it seemed like it was less of a vast emptiness until the world was destroyed, and it was pretty empty.
Well, there's just so much in this game. There's sections of this game that are, of course, in the world of balance. There's this beautiful greenery. And the towns, of course, look peaceful, like you were saying. It just looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right, the whole world map and the color palette to do with that. And then there's Figaro, where it's like this brown, like stone thing, but it doesn't look as dead as like the stone buildings in 5 do.
Yeah.
It doesn't look quite as gray. There's definitely a lot more life there. And then you have sections of this game where it's just white and blue, like the city of Narsh, or the opening section of the game, which of course takes place in Narsh.
Yeah.
This beautiful snow look, this blue to that, and then of course on the opposite end there are sections with like this red lava. This game really has just a plethora of colors, and it looks great.
Yeah, it does. And it really makes the Super NES look awesome.
Exactly,
honestly.
like the character sprites. There's so many people talk about this all the time. There's so many different movements for the characters.
Right.
They're not just nods like they are in Final Fantasy 5 or 4.
Yeah.
There's like the finger wagging and like the whole like playfulness on the menu and
right.
in the game. There's just there's so much there, and it's so rich. It's great.
Yeah, or like that scene in the beginning where they find out that Terra can use magic, and they just like go up to the screen and they're like all red-eyed and in love with her, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. And so like they just utilized every ounce of technology that this friggin' system could do, and it paid off. The Mode 7, all of that, it looks great. It paved the way for the later games in the series as far as the PlayStation era, with the airships and the 3D and the world map being just super 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed the look of the game overall.
I agree. I think the best part of the game, as far as look is concerned, is probably at the very beginning, as we talked about, when the Magitech armor is walking across the field and the opening credits are coming at us.
Yeah.
I think that really like shows off what Final Fantasy VI can do.
Yeah, it looked good.
And the opening, of course, is stunning. When you're just booting it up after playing 5, there's just a huge difference in the quality of the look of the game, and the graphical quality and the color and the design. It all looks freaking fantastic.
Right, and then of course the in battle animations or the artwork for Kefka, especially at the end, was just crazy looking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the artwork.
The monsters in it look great.
They looked awesome. And one of the cool things about the monsters is kind of off. No, this stays on topic. They introduced a lot of the favorites. We had the Toneberry. I can't remember what his name was, but it was something weird. We had the
in our version, yeah. They of course change the names when they get on the Game Boy version.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
And then the 7 is when they started with the normal names, what we're used to.
Or with the names that were except for Eris apparently.
Yeah. And Cactar, we had a Cactar in this one.
But it was called something else.
I can't even remember what he was,
like
but
a Catrot or something.
Oh yeah, it was Cat Trot. It was really weird. And the Marlboro was Mad Oscar. So that was really odd.
Yeah, that's right. It was Mad Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think this is the first time a Cactar showed up in the games.
It is.
It is.
There was a cactus monster in 5 that did a needle attack, but it wasn't a
maybe
cactar.
that was it.
It was like a cactus.
Yeah, but this was a cat trot anyway. So
True, but it
maybe it was 5.
Maybe it was the sweet cactar that we all know and love. Yeah. So,
go ahead.
What did you think about? I know we've already talked about the soundtrack. You think it's Nobou's masterpiece?
I think it is. All I'm thinking about right now is just the map themes in the game. There's the Terra theme.
Yeah, that one's sweet.
Yeah, that one. It has an epic quality to it. It has a mysterious quality to it, and it also has kind of this sadness that underlays in that musical track. And I think it not only tells the story of Terra and how Terra feels, it can be used in so many different parts. It also feels adventurous when you're out on the map. It feels like this big adventurous theme.
Yeah.
But yet they'll use that score. It's called mise en scène when they use certain scores for certain situations. They'll use that score in, when there's some like magical thing about to happen around Terra.
Right.
And then they'll use it in sad scenes. As long as it happens around Terra, that musical score will play. And that music fits all those situations.
Yeah, it's a good track.
It's a fantastic track. And the other track that I think is just fantastic is, of course, in the World of Ruin when you have the airship.
Yeah.
It's another flute-centric soundtrack. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
Yeah, those are really
good.
good.
And you'll hum them, and they don't get old. Like, you're just mad at the battle soundtrack for showing up in the middle of you walking through because you want to hear the song more.
Yeah, I felt that way too. The nice thing about this one and some of the other ones, I think the soundtrack would reset when you got out of battle, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it like continued where it was before.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so it was cool. So I didn't have to hear just the intro to the map theme when I was walking around. And yeah, I enjoyed those two quite a bit. And
I mean, it reused some tracks from 5, like the battle theme. If it's not the same, it's very similar.
Yeah, and there was
battle theme for 5.
There was there was one other track that sounded really similar. Oh, I think it was one that sounds just like Eris's theme from 7. But it's really good.
It is the same composer. I mean, you can't really.
No, I know, but it's really good, a really good track, and technically, the one from 7 sounds like 6's, but
right, exactly. We should state it that way.
Yeah. And then the final battle with Kefka, the music there was sweet.
Yeah,
awesome.
It did have a really good ending battle soundtrack. I know you were freaking out about it because you were like, "This is better than Sephiroth's theme."
Yeah, because it doesn't have to say Sephiroth in it. Plus, I don't know, Kefka is pretty intense. Being a Tower of Doom kind of thing. So yeah, great soundtrack. Totally the best by far up to this point, at the very least, if not total.
If not the best. I mean, we'll be replaying 7, which of course has another very famous score. Yeah. And 8 has at least one track that everybody loves. I can't remember the name of it right now, but the opening track of 8.
Yeah.
The big orchestral score. That's cool.
That's
the
cool.
Balam Garden music makes me want to shoot myself, but
yeah, and the one track that we always talk about in our personal day-to-day business where it brings in that singer.
Oh, that fucking Eyes on Me.
Yeah.
Oh,
that is bad.
Horrible song.
When they went vocalists, it's like just downhill.
Well, it shows up when you're with Squall and Renoa by themselves on the ship, and like they use kind of the melody from the song and other tracks in the game, and it's not annoying there. It's annoying when her voice shows up, and it's just awful. But then after that, it doesn't show up like that again until like the last video or something like that.
Oh.
But since it's been stained with her voice, then the tune is just annoying.
Right.
That.
Yeah, I didn't have a single.
I think it's the worst song in Final Fantasy with vocals on it, and quickly it's followed by that opening song of Final Fantasy X-2, of course.
Oh yeah.
What can I do for you?
Yeah, thankfully they didn't get.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, thankfully they didn't get to that until much later in the series, or else our ears would be bleeding for a long, long time.
There was one really annoying soundtrack in Final Fantasy
Oh,
VI.
yes. The damn auction house theme was horrible, and we had to spend time in there because we had to bid to get the Magicites, and there was like a certain percentage chance that they would be up for auction. So we spent like...
Yeah, you had to go in there like 25 times.
Yeah, to get these
and
two...
you had to hear that goddamn song
dude.
over and over again.
It's the same in the Coliseum, too.
Is it the same?
Yeah, it's the same song. I walked in there and I was like, oh, no. Because I had to go back to grab one of the characters, and I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't take too long.
This part's already annoying. Do you really have to add that song to it?
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I did not like that one. But other than that, fantastic. So how did you feel about the characters, the character development, the character arcs, characters in comparison to the previous entries?
Well, I definitely thought there was more of a focus on character in general in this game.
Okay.
You of course get for most of the playable characters, you get, of course, as we talked about in the development, you get an episode or two in the case of Cyan based upon that character. So Celes has her own section where she's like the main person, and then there's Locke, of course, where we find out about Rachel and her falling to her it's not to her death, but basically to her losing her mind. And then
she was like in a coma or something.
You know, Cyan's the ghost train with Cyan, of course. Yeah. The two brothers, Edgar and Sabin, have their own section. Terra, of course, has the whole game.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there are some characters that, of course, you don't get to really delve into, but they are the characters that are a little bit more optional. I feel like Realm and Strago, unlike Krele and her grandfather from the last game, Galoof, yeah, or Fusoya and his granddaughter. I forgot her name. Where they're all kind of like the grandpa and granddaughter team. They were not explored in this game.
No, not as much as Galoof and Krele.
Which is odd, considering like Krele and Galoof were well explored in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, they were awesome.
And if they were going to keep that motif of grandpa and granddaughter, then
they kind of do. Because you think about it, with 7, you've got the old man and the observatory in red. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So they just laxed this time. They're like, yeah. Well, the thing is you get those guys, and then like 5 minutes later, the world breaks, and they're gone. I'm like, I didn't even remember their names, right? I'm like trying to think, like, who the hell was the old guy and the daughter? Because I got to find them now.
All I remember is that she paints.
Yeah, she paints and can do some damage with it.
And he can do some magic.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, besides those characters, Mog, Umaru, Gogo, you don't really get to learn that much about those characters either.
Right.
But, you know, Celes, Locke, Terra, Cyan, and the brothers, I feel like they're well explored.
Yeah.
Especially, I think they're more three-dimensional. Let's say Edgar and Sabin are more three-dimensional than Bart's from Final Fantasy V, who of course was the main character.
Right.
Simply because you get to spend time with them and see their emotional background a lot more than previous entries in this series.
Yeah, and I would argue future entries even. I would say that the cast in 6 might be the best cast in any Final Fantasy game. And I know that's kind of a bold statement, but I don't think it's bold.
It's
no.
not that bold.
Because every game, you've always got the characters that you don't really care about necessarily. There's the
Riku, god damn it.
Yeah, there's
Yuffie.
Riku, there's Yuffie.
There's always the annoying teenage girl.
Kate Sith is horrible in 7, right? He's just like pointless. But in this one, the only one that I felt that way about were the granddaughter team. They were kind of They didn't have much of a story. And then the optional characters I don't really count because you don't have to.
They're optional. You can just grab them if you want to.
Yeah. And Umaru was a beast with his freaking leaping across the screen to throw
give him
people.
The rage, whatever item.
Yeah, for Yetis. Or I think it says Sasquatch in the description.
Yeah,
but
it says
whatever.
Sasquatch.
So I would say that these are the best fleshed out characters that I've seen in a Final Fantasy game thus far. And thus far in my playing, and also in the first 6.
In the first 6, I would say definitely. I think there's a lot of character exploration. I'm not going to say more or less, but there's a lot of character exploration in Final Fantasy X. I feel like you get to know those characters quite well.
That's true. That's very true.
And all of those characters, of course, have their own section too. I think they tried to do what they did with 6 with Final Fantasy 13.
They definitely did.
And for some reason, it didn't work as well. Because in 13, you have your own episodes, remember?
Yeah.
For each character, and they split off, and then you get to spend quite a long time with them.
Yeah, you do. It's
even longer than in Final Fantasy 6, but for some reason doesn't work as well.
Yeah,
At least from what I can tell and remember.
Right, and when I was playing through 6, I actually felt a big connection with 6 and 12. But 6 did it better. I mean, obviously, with the not really a main character, but then there's kind of really a main character thing. I feel like they tried to do that again later, and it didn't work as well. So,
right.
And I also feel with the villain, I think the villain is excellent in this game.
It's true.
As a character, I think he's one of the strongest up to this point. Not necessarily the toughest to fight, but
no.
The biggest, you get a feel for him a little better than some of the other games, some of the other entries. How'd you feel about Kefka?
Kefka, I thought he was evil, and all he wanted to do was to basically be a god,
right?
And to have all power and to do what he wanted. He wanted the world to be his sandbox, basically, and he destroyed and he built his own tower to him. He had a god complex. He killed the emperor that he was working for,
Right.
I felt like that was interesting. However, as a villain, Kefka is less interesting than, let's say, Sephiroth. I know that's a bad thing to say. I know that a lot of people think that Kefka's the best bad guy in the series, but I thought that he wasn't that complex of a bad guy. He was just kind of bad.
Right.
And he was very bad. I mean, he did worse things than any of the other bad guys did, but his motivation was less interesting to me.
Right. Kefka...
He's still a good bad guy.
He is.
I should say that.
And initially, the laughing that he does was kind of annoying to me. Yeah. And I was like, this makes it seem like a joke. But, I mean, he is kind of a jester dude, so sort of makes sense. But he does some... fucked up stuff.
And he's compared to like Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
A lot.
Dude,
and I can
sweet.
see that. He's kind of like this colorful character. He's got like this crazy zany laugh and this weird sense of humor, but then he is hateful.
Yeah, he's just pure evil
in the game, and he's pure evil, and he has less motivation than other bad guys in the series.
Right, and that's where I think Kefka's weak point comes in, and that's where I agree with you with Sephiroth. The difference between the two, the big reason that I hear that Kefka's better, or he's a more intense bad guy, or however you want to word it, is because he actually destroyed the world. But the issue with that
Spoiler alert.
The issue with that is he didn't really intentionally destroy the world. He just wanted the power. He wanted
the power to destroy the world.
He wanted the power to rule the world.
And
Because what happened is he disrupted the statues,
right,
and
he moved
they
the
destroyed the
statues,
world.
and then the world was destroyed. But
By the
then
statues.
he got that beam thing that he was controlling.
He
was
did,
destroying.
But the world was destroyed by the statues, by him being greedy and trying to take their power. It wasn't him. He wasn't like going up there like, all right, I'm going to fucking destroy this place. Later, he was like, all right, I'm going to fucking destroy this place. And he would have, but he didn't really ruin the world.
Well, in the world, they talk about how they were getting out of the way of Kefka's beam. So Kefka obviously just destroyed.
Oh, he was wreaking havoc for sure.
Probably Kefka's best scene of being a bad guy is when he poisons Cyan's entire
Castle.
castle.
Yeah, it's like
except
nuts.
for Cyan, and kills everybody.
Cyan drinks Mountain Dew.
It's probably
not water.
Not water.
But that was intense.
That
It was
was
also
intense.
odd that
A lot of death.
yeah, and everyone just drank water at the same time. I mean,
That was really odd.
yeah,
We have talked about this before. The whole scene where he poisons the water and somehow everybody drank water in like a 2-minute period of time.
yeah. Unless there was supposed to be like a time transition that we may have not noticed.
Right, and there probably was, and it's it's Nintendo 64, or it's not Nintendo 64, but
Super.
It's Super NES, storytelling time, so it's a little quicker. Yeah, you gotta kind of put a filter on though.
Yeah, you
With
don't
that
worry
kind
about
of a
that.
thing, you don't worry about exactly.
It was pure evil either way. So even if no one would have died, that's still really messed up, right?
Plus, it gives us the ability to have the Phantom Train sequence. right
Yeah,
after that.
which is one of the best sequences in the game.
It's
I
a
think.
great sequence, and it really adds to Cyan's character.
Yeah.
About his love for not only his country but his family, and you see the pain that his family leaving causes him.
Right.
As he, of course, is on the Phantom Train and tries to stop.
Right. So, how did you feel about the summons in this game? I feel like they're starting to become.
Let's not talk about summons right now. I do want to talk about the main character thing because we brought this up.
Oh
earlier.
yeah.
Terra is the main character of this game, definitely.
Okay. What reasons do you have for that?
The reasons I have, first of all, you start with Terra, and Terra has the biggest arc in the game. I mean, Celes and Locke are both probably secondaries
You start with Locke.
to Terra. No, you start with Terra and Biggs and Wedge.
Oh yeah, no,
That's
you're
very
right.
at the prologue of the game.
Yeah, you're right.
Terra starts out where she's the slave
she's
to this
possessed.
empire. Eventually, she gets rescued, and she's in this state of mind where she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know how to be human. She doesn't know how to feel. Throughout the game, she learns how to love. She, of course, when the world is destroyed, she cares for these orphans, and eventually her love for her human side, her humanity, comes to the point where she saves the entire crew when she pulls the airship by herself out of the destruction of Kefka's tower at the end of the game. She is the one with the biggest arc.
Right. I think.
And then, of course, she saves everybody at the end of the day.
Right. I agree with that.
I think Terra is definitely the main character, even though you don't have Terra for a big chunk of the game.
Yeah, she kind of goes. She takes off all her clothes and takes off, But I think I agree with you.
Yeah, most of the plot, I mean, except for Kefka, the plot revolves around Terra.
Right. I also think that Celes is more main than everyone else too, for the same reasons. Because you get Celes, who, sure, she chose to be evil in the beginning, right? Or she was part of the Empire. That doesn't necessarily make her
part of the
evil.
Empire, but she was rebelling against
Right.
it.
She rebelled against them, and then the opera scene with her showed that she didn't need to be this killing monster necessarily.
Right, exactly.
And
It showed her humanity.
Yeah, it was like that's what makes that scene beautiful, is that she's casting away her old self, sort of, because she's still a beast in battle. But
I kind of see an underlying part where she's in love with Locke a little bit
yeah, I see it too in the
that,
game.
in that scene especially.
And she has a decent character arc too, because It's not. It doesn't expand it doesn't go the whole expanse of the game quite as much as Terra's. But I would say Celes is probably also a main character, but definitely secondary.
They're all
technically
they're all main character. They're all protagonists,
right?
But that doesn't mean they're all main characters. Protagonist and main character are not necessarily the same thing.
No, they're not. And
as a protagonist moves the story forward, and a main character is the one that you're paying most of the attention to. You can have a main character where things happen to the main character. And the main character reacts. A protagonist is the one who moves it forward.
Right.
And an antagonist moves against the protagonist.
Right. It's okay.
Of course, these terms are all fucked up anyway. But that's how I learned it.
Yeah, that's when I was playing. I didn't think there was much confusion either. I was with you. I was like, Terra's the main character.
Terra's the main character. The only time you question that is when you have Celes for like 20 hours.
Yeah, and then you're like, well, Celes is kind of the main character. And in a way she is, but her arc isn't as full. It isn't as complete as Terra's.
Exactly.
And
the way I've been taught in film analysis is that subplot characters, which Celes would be a subplot character, because she has her own arc, but it's smaller than the main character's arc. It helps tell the story of the main character. So without Celes going about her journey where she gets the party together,
right,
she wouldn't have gotten Terra back on track,
right,
to help save the world. And in so doing, also help save Terra's own humanity.
Right, and everyone had their own little plots, and it all it all helped.
So although it was the development goal to have everybody be the main character, I think Kitase, when he rewrote it, he knew. I think he made Terra the main character.
Yeah, so I don't think, for us at least, there's no confusion. There's no, what do you guys think about not being a main character? Because we acknowledge Terra as the main character, which was a question for our question segment. Yeah, Void asked us what we felt about 6 not having a main character, and we feel it did. It just wasn't intended necessarily initially.
Initially, I don't think. Yeah, Terra, she's on the box art too.
Yeah, that usually does kind of.
Of course, I think the Moogle's on the box art of the original Super NES release. So, is the Moogle the main character?
No. Not even close.
All right, so summons. What do you think about the summons then? If we're gonna move on to the Espers.
I think they really. This is where they started getting to where we know them. You know, you had them in the previous games where they come out and do their little moves, but this one brings in just a different element of it. It's with it joined with the magic system. I don't know. I felt like I liked the summons more in this game than in 5, let's say, or 4 even, because I guess it's more a talk of the summons / magic system. But
right.
Oh, what do you think? Do you like the equipping the Espers and learning the skills?
Well, of course they reused that in Final Fantasy VIII with the junction system, and they did something similar. They made it a little bit more complicated and a little bit more broken.
Right.
But anyway, the magic isn't part of this world.
Right.
Of Final Fantasy VI, which is of course something that differs it from the previous Final Fantasies where there was like the crystals and the magic had to deal with the crystals.
Yeah, and it was standard
This
procedure.
time there are magic is just inherent in certain individuals and in these creatures called Espers, who live on the moon, but some of them are on Earth. And they can give their power away when they die as magicite.
Right.
Whatever the chemical equivalent to that is, who knows?
It's like probably crystal.
But anyway, they use the magicite, and that'll give them certain powers.
Right.
From the dead Espers.
Right. They give you their abilities essentially.
Exactly. So you can junction the Esper onto a character and learn certain magic based upon the Esper junction to that character.
Right.
Ragnarok, of course, being the most useful, and Phoenix, probably after that.
Yeah. And
I did enjoy the system. I felt like I don't know, for some reason it reminded me of the job system in 5 just a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course that reminds me a little bit of the 3 and 2, learning the certain abilities. The more that you use them, there were points that there was a percentage that you were trying to get up to, which was 100%. And then one magic point would be 1%, unless of course the summon let you multiply that percentage.
Right, and I think that might have been character specific. I never really investigated, but
it wasn't. I
think
it was summon specific.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So the better summons that had Cure 1 would do it faster, kind of.
Right,
thing.
exactly.
Okay.
So I did like the system, and I exploited the system. It gives you a reason to level up too, because you're like, oh, I want that spell.
Right.
So it added to the game. It didn't subtract from the game. I think it was good, and you could use the summons if you want. I used Carbuncle a couple times.
Yeah.
And Phoenix is nice.
Yeah, Phoenix is awesome, bringing your guys back to life. I do think this is, like we said, the start of what they tried to do in 8. Not successfully by any means, but
no, it's broken in 8.
Right. I think they could have done an awesome thing in 8, where we've talked about this, where you junction the Espers and then you get the magic from them to then put onto your characters, kind of a thing, as opposed to just drawing and then
the draw system is just bullshit.
But yeah.
That's like 2 hours of wasted gameplay in Final Fantasy VIII.
Right. So what I loved about the Espers in this
game,
game,
encounter non-ability, and that's
right?
Awesome.
You don't have to touch anything, which is
why it's broken.
It's bullshit. You don't have to level up in a Final Fantasy. It's sick. It'll be a nice break from the grind, I guess. But yeah, I enjoyed them, even though, like you said, I was kind of the same way. I didn't really use the summons themselves very often.
Right.
But their abilities were awesome.
And you use summons a lot more in later games in the series. Like, they get really useful up till about 10.
Yeah.
And then in 12, they're just not useful at all.
No, 12s are crappy. I hardly ever used them. I used them to see what they did, and then that was about it. I put them on the shelf.
So, like, in 7, they're useful.
Oh, yeah. They do a lot of damage.
And in 8, they're useful, too, at the beginning, at least.
Yeah.
So
when you get that boost thing, you can really hammer out some damage.
But then it get annoying when you have to watch that animation over and over and over again. And you're like, I might as well just put everything on my strength stats so I don't have to see this.
Yeah, and then you do.
And the animations are a lot shorter for Final Fantasy VI's summons, or Espers, as they're called.
Right. So, let's talk about choosing between the Ultima spell, or I guess Ragnarok the summon, and Ragnarok the sword.
I got the summon.
Okay.
With Ultima spell. And you know what I did with that? I made everybody in my main party, of course we all have main parties.
Right.
Because no one levels up those things evenly, and if they do, they're completionists, and I don't understand it.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much.
Once they got Ultima, they were basically unbeatable. Because Ultima would do max damage almost every time.
Except for the Kefka, you were doing about 34. But you could do it to every party.
No, it was to everybody. When it was only one guy, it would do max damage.
Oh, okay.
So, and then it would split the damage as there were different people. But it would do a lot.
It was still hefty. I saw him treat Kefka to a ass whooping at the end with a spell. So I, in light of my personal love for the weapon Ragnarok and throughout the series, decided to go the opposite way for that reason, and because I was told to by someone else, and because I kind of wanted to see, well, maybe this way's better. And what I did is I found out that you can bet the Ragnarok weapon at the Colosseum, and you get this other weapon that's called like Illuminati or something weird. Illumini, I think that's what it is.
Illuminati.
And, yeah. Dylan. But
oh, don't say his name.
No one knows that. Anyway,
Guy's fucking nuts.
The Ragnarok weapon by itself, it ignores armor, as far as I can tell, so it does just a shitload of damage, right? And it also has the potential to do, I think it's flare or something. It's some big spell. I traded it in really quick because I knew this other one was better, and the other one does pearl randomly. But what I chose to do, instead of doing the Esper and getting Ultima, which would have been kind of easier, I decided to go the hard, more brutish way. And I equipped I think Edward, who I had leveled up quite a bit with another option we'll talk about. and I threw the best sword in the game on him and the second best sword, and threw on the Genji glove so that he can hold 2 swords, and then I threw on the offering item that you pick up in the underground area in between. It's under Castle
It's
Fagara.
Daryl's tomb. Isn't it?
Daryl's. No.
That's the experience egg. The ancient castle.
Ancient Castle. That's what it's called.
With Odin and that whole flashback scene.
Yeah. Which is awesome, by the way. But
just slices them in half.
Yeah, I got offering, which allows attack to turn into attack X. So I could do
multiple times.
Yeah, it would be 4 attacks per hand, and if I had dual wheel, that's 8 attacks apiece, or per
That's
attack
disgusting.
section. It is.
And if you cast quick on yourself, you could do 16.
Right.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah, but foolishly, I forgot to equip offering for the final battle.
But you still kill them in one go.
Oh, yeah.
So why do it again?
I don't know. That's a good
just
question.
to see what it looks like. Him just doing 16 attacks in a row.
Of 999.
See, I did the same thing that you did, is that at the end, I just kind of saved and then I walked forward and I forgot to do my bullshit equip, which is what I was going to do. I was like, I'm going to beat this game down. I was going to do... there was the magic box.
Magic box, right.
Which you get when you go up the Tower of the Magi and you defeat the guy at the top, you can get the magic box.
Right.
Right? And that's basically the same thing as offering.
Right.
Where you attack multiple times. And then if you also have dual cast on, there's an item that gives you dual cast. I can't remember what it's called. And then if you cast quick on yourself, you could do basically the same thing, just with Ultima.
Right, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
So
I wish I had done that.
Yeah, we didn't truly exploit the awesomeness because we both just rushed in and kicked his ass. But I don't know. I'm kind of satisfied with both options. I think Ultima is sweet because you get everyone to have the spell, and the final area is not as hard for you.
No, it definitely wasn't.
Your Gimp party has Ultima.
Right. There's a part, Kefka's Tower, you have to split up into 3 teams, and you basically have to have, how many people was it? 12 people? Yeah, 12.
Yeah, 12.
4 divided, yeah. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. Anyway, you have those 3 parties, and the problem is you're going to have 2 good parties and then 1 shit party.
Right.
But I had 4 people who knew Ultima. So I had 1 party with 2 people who knew Ultima, and then the other 2 parties had 1 person who knew Ultima each.
Right.
And then I tried to balance out, the secondary characters that I never used or leveled up, which ones were a little bit more powerful and which ones were less. Like the less powerful people I put into the party with 2 people, and then 2 people who knew Ultima, and then the other parties, of course, were a little bit more even.
Right.
So my Gimp party was Edgar, Umaru, Gogo, and Realm.
Ooh.
And
Edgar's a good one.
I was still able to... Yeah, Edgar was awesome, though. So, Realm would keep Edgar alive. Umaru would just, throw Gogo across, and then Gogo would sometimes redo the Ultima spell for, half damage or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And so my Gimp party actually turned out to do pretty well.
Right, and with me...
Didn't have too many options, though, unfortunately. Realm would just jump. I gave her the dragon boots and then the continuous jumping thing.
That's pretty sweet.
So she would do, a couple thousand.
The nice thing about that is you avoid damage, too. The AoEs.
Yeah,
that's the biggest part. That's how I made it.
The hard part about that last area is the doom that everybody's casting on you. They're just killing you automatically.
Yeah, and then or especially at the end of the fight, it's so cheap. You kill them and then they're like, revenge. You die and then they disappear. I'm like, you dick, come back. But yeah, with me, I had my beef party where that was the party that I was gonna beat the game with. Until I realized that this shit was happening.
Beef party sounds so gross.
It does. And I had the secondary party.
We're going to a beef party. You want to come? No?
I would say no to that, too. Anyway, I had the god party, right? And then I had Celes in the other one and a couple other good characters. And then Mog, Umaru, and I don't even remember. There's a couple other useless ones in the third party. But... that's not a good way to go about it because, as Joe...
No, your third party was horrible.
My third party had a hard time. And And the only reason I made it is because Mog can be a god with offering. And
one of your parties has to do 4 battle. My Gimp party is the one that did the 4 battles.
Right.
So I was afraid for you, but you only had to do 3.
Yeah,
you walked the other way with Terra on one of the switches.
Right, and I chose to go with Celes, who was much better than the others in the Gimp party.
Right.
So it was difficult, and if you're going to play 6, keep that in mind. You don't necessarily have to level up the other characters. You just have to distribute your godliness evenly so that you can make it through.
Which I think is the problem with getting the weapon instead of getting the Ultima spell.
It is.
Because everybody can learn the Ultima spell and do max damage.
Right.
Not everybody can hold the same weapon.
Right. So, I mean,
There is another way to get Ultima, though, that you didn't exploit. But
No.
you have to, get a certain shield. I was reading this on a guide. You have to get, a certain shield, and you have to hold it for, 250 battles or something like that. And then you'll learn Ultima.
Right. So in a way,
that you get through, I think, the Colosseum.
Yeah, you do. In a way, it's better to get the sword because of that, but that's a lot of battles if that's how long.
Yeah,
it
that's
takes.
a lot, and we had to beat the game.
We did. I wasn't gonna find that shit.
I did get all but 2 Espers, and those 2 Espers I couldn't get because I had not done stuff on the World of Balance.
Which 2 did you not get?
I can't remember the second one, but I remember that I couldn't get Leviathan because I had to talk to an old man who talks about Leviathan, but he's only in the World of Balance. So I had to talk to him
Before he died?
before the World of Ruin happened, and I unfortunately was looking for all the Espers later than that.
Well, that's kind of how you do these games. Once you get to the end, you're like, all right, I got to level up, so let's go do the optional stuff.
Exactly.
Well, we didn't have the option. I didn't get Leviathan either.
I should have looked up some stuff, when I had the airship near the end of the World of Balance.
Yeah.
Should have done that.
Could have.
But didn't.
I didn't either. I also didn't, obviously, I didn't get the Ragnarok summon, so I missed, I think, 2 or 3, but other than that, we got all of them. I mean, there's the 2 in the auction house where you listen to the
the important thing
music.
for me was getting, I was going to try to get all the Espers, couldn't, of course. And then
getting the characters back.
getting all the characters except for Shadow, which I don't want to talk about.
Yep. Couldn't wait.
As you know, when the world breaks apart, when the World of Balance breaks apart, you are given the option to wait for Shadow. And I, in my hurry, after having to fight Atma Weapon or Ultima Weapon in other versions, I didn't want to fight him again. And after doing that, you have to kind of run and you're on a timer. And I was in such a hurry, I just pressed X when the text box came up.
Right.
And it was to leave.
Yeah, and the crappy part
the
is...
second option is, of course, to wait for Shadow.
The other one is wait. It doesn't even say wait for Shadow.
Well, it just says wait. Yeah, but I knew what it meant. I knew what to do. Last time I played this game, I had gotten Shadow. And this time I was just in a hurry and I wasn't even thinking. And then as soon as I pressed the button, I was like, no. And I killed Shadow, of course, halfway through the game. So his extra quest thing, the extra flashback or whatever, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
It made me sad.
It's too bad. Didn't do everything, did you?
You waited, didn't you?
I did. I knew, obviously. So, but the sick thing about that part is that it just says, let's go or wait. And then after you press wait, she's like, oh, let's wait for Shadow. I'm
like a person who hasn't played the game before.
You could easily miss that. You could kill him and not even know. Just think that that's part of the story, that Shadow dies. Oh, yeah, Shadow dies. Until you get to the ending and you see the credits with him, and then you probably be like...
Shadow as Shadow, and then nothing.
Well, I loved yours because it was like a montage of his village with just this picture of him in the corner. Although mine...
You're missing out on something.
Yeah. Good job, buddy. But, yeah, so there's some cool variations, some choices that you get to make.
Exactly.
That affect the game, sort of, but not necessarily drastically. Unless you want to dominate the last area.
Yeah, Shadow's supposed to be a good character to have.
He's tanky as hell.
Now, of course, I haven't played this game in 7 years. But last time I got it, I did use Shadow quite a bit.
Yeah, he was in my beefcake.
And I didn't use Sabin because last time I played this game, I played it on an emulator, and the blitz commands were just impossible on my keyboard, which I had bullshit like moved around stuff, so I didn't even know what key was what. I just kind of knew it from muscle memory. And so like doing a blitz command was impossible.
Yeah, I could see that with custom keys. And
so yeah,
that sucks because he's godly.
Yeah, but I used him a lot now.
Yeah.
His blitzes were good up until like the very end, and then it was like, why use the blitz? Use Ultima.
Well, his physical attacks were doing more than his blitz by the end too.
Yeah.
But one cool thing, I really enjoyed doing the suplex to the train, the ghost train, which you never experienced.
No, where he lifts up the train and slams it down.
Yeah,
that's what. Yeah,
it's pro. It's like ridiculous. I when I first got into the fight, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna see if I could do this. And then he freaking picks it up, flies in the air, and like slams it upside down. It's does like a shitload.
You should have just beat the train by taking it off its tracks.
Yeah, that would insta win, right? If it wrecks. But then Sabin or Cyan's family would be stuck in limbo, and it'd be odd.
So let's talk about how we broke the game a little bit. The Vanish Doom trick is probably the best thing on the planet of Final Fantasy VI.
Okay, I would second that.
Basically, guys, if you've never exploited this before, you cast Vanish on tough enemies, not all the bosses, but a lot of the early bosses.
And all of the dragons.
And all of the 8 dragons that in order... What was the summon that you get after those 8 dragons? You remember?
I don't. I got it like right as I finished.
Yeah, so did I, so I can't really remember the name of the guy. He does let you learn Flare, though, which is nice.
Yeah.
You kill those 8 dragons easily. You just do one thing. You cast Vanish on him, and then you cast Doom on him, and they're dead.
Yeah, it's sick. All right, and I owe Joe an obscene act because I bet him that he wouldn't be able to kill this dragon in one go because I forgot about the Vanish Doom trick for about 10 minutes, and I was fighting this dragon. I was like, dude, this guy is sick. This is fucking wrong. And
it was the dragon in the ice field in Narsh, right?
Yes.
No, it wasn't. It was in the mountain.
Oh, no, yeah, it was in the mountain.
It was like the black dragon in the mountain.
Yeah, and the shitty part that I did, I saved after I let the fucking guy out of the box, so I couldn't escape from him, right? And I didn't have Vanish Doom. I didn't have it learned yet, and I couldn't walk around to level up to earn it because this guy was flying around like a psycho. So I had to kill him legitimately, right? But I told Joe, I will blow you if you go into there and you kill this thing in one try. And then I'm sitting there watching him, and I'm like, oh my god, the Vanish Doom thing. He's going to do it, and he did. So
he owes me a blowjob.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I'm gonna come into your room late, and it's gonna be like 2:00 in the morning. You'll have unlocked your door in your house. Liz will just be asleep there, and I'll be like, Caleb, it's time, and I'll drop my pants.
I'm cashing in.
Yeah, cashing.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. So
someone owes me a blowjob.
Yeah, it's something that you should use though, because the dragon fights can be pretty tough. Although there were a few of them that I just killed because I was lazy.
When I got Ultima, everything was easy, so like killing the late dragons was whatever.
It wasn't even worth changing your auto setting from Ultima to Vanish Doom at that point.
Right.
You're just gonna fist him.
Just kill him with Vanish, or kill him with Ultima.
Right.
Leveling up though with the Vanish Doom is nice, and we'll get to that on our tactics you might need.
Right.
In a little bit here. Overall, Caleb. What did you think of the game?
I thought the game was fantastic. And the reason why it was fantastic is because it had a fantastic story. It had great storytelling elements, a decent final boss who wasn't Text Death, so we could beat him. It just felt super engaging, and I felt a connection with the characters more so than I have thus far in the series,
And the gameplay was pretty balanced, yeah.
It was balanced. I leveled up quite a bit near the end, but I don't know if I really had to. Well, not having Ultima, I probably had to, but it didn't have the issues of 4 where you get to the moon and you are just dominated by everything. And the soundtrack was great, the visuals were great. I think this was a fantastic game.
I agree. This is my second time playing the game. This is your first time beating it, right?
Yeah, it's my first time.
This is my second time beating it. The second time around, I thought it was even better than the first time I had played it. The first time I had played it, I thought there was this great, strong narrative, and then once the world broke apart, I thought that the narrative lost steam in the second half of the game. But this time, I completely disagree, and I don't know why I felt that way, except that Terra wasn't part of my party, and I think that's why I felt the disconnect the first time I played. This time, however, I was more invested into it, and the world breaking apart just made the plot even stronger. I felt the second time around, I thought it was a very interesting choice to break apart your characters like that, and to have the world actually, receive some damage.
Yeah, some heavy damage.
It was a great game, and the Terra storyline, of course, is very powerful, and yeah, other storylines in the game are also very powerful.
Right. I mean, you've got Cyan and his family. That was
exactly.
That was a tough scene.
Celes' suicide attempt scene was something I had forgotten about until I looked up Yoshinori Kitase, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, going through that again, that's a beautiful section of the game. I think it's even better than the Opera House scene, but it actually reflects the Opera House scene. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
When you're walking up with Celes, and instead of her throwing flowers, she throws herself off a cliff.
Right.
And man, it's there are great, memorable sections of this game.
Right.
That blow other games out of the water for the most part.
Yeah. It's good.
Now, Game Informer, I remember when they did their top 200 games, they put this at number 8 as far as greatest games of all time, according to Game Informer. And often Final Fantasy VI shows up on lists of 10 best games ever. And as far as the games that I've played, maybe 7 is above it. I don't know. I'll have to replay 7, of course.
Right.
My old ranking had 6 under 7 and 10, but that was because of the world splitting, and I thought the narrative stopped. But this time around, I feel completely differently. I feel like 6 out of the 6 that we've played, it's on top.
Oh yeah, it's on top by a ways.
The gameplay is well balanced. I don't think the gameplay was as fun as in Final Fantasy V, but it fit the game very well. It was better than 4's gameplay. It was more balanced than that.
Right.
And the extra quests were fun. There was no real bullshit parts where the game just got out of whack, where you go to the moon on 4 and just the enemies are sick.
Right.
I mean, there were sick enemies in the final area of 6, as there should be in any final area. But they weren't unbeatable.
No, you just had to wail on them if you didn't have Ultima.
Exactly. And no, I loved the game this time around. The soundtrack was just gorgeous.
Yeah, it was
just
good.
A beautiful soundtrack. Everything about this game I like. I can't even think of anything I hate except for that auction house
right
song. That's
yeah,
really it.
That kind of bugged me, and then at sometimes Kefka's laugh was it was super cheesy, but I think the final fight where he does it's pretty badass. Because then you see him as this giant tree root thing, and it's kind of freaky that he's laughing at you still.
Exactly. The only thing that is lesser than of the previous 5 games before it is its difficulty level, but that's not really a problem.
No, you shouldn't have to.
I mean, 5's last boss was just sick.
Yeah, X-Death
and getting to the moon in 4 was gross, and then the final dungeon in 3 was disgusting.
Oh yeah.
It's probably the easiest Final Fantasy of the first 6. It's the easiest, I think.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really remember 2 being extremely difficult.
The end boss was harder than...
Yeah, we both beat the end boss on this one very, very quickly.
Yeah, one try.
Right.
I have yet to
But
die.
we did a whole bunch of extra stuff. If we hadn't done that extra stuff, it wouldn't be as easy, I don't think.
Right. And yeah, I feel like the story just trumps anything that I've played up to this point in the series.
Any 2D game that I know that I've played a lot, it's better than...
Yeah, it's...
I haven't played Chrono Trigger extensively, though. I've heard that's close to it.
Right, I've heard that as well. And I own it, I just haven't gotten time to play it, so...
I played a good chunk of Chrono Trigger,
Oh,
but
did you?
never played the whole thing. But yeah, that's as far as our rankings go. I'm gonna rank it 6, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1.
Yeah, mine's the same.
They get better as they go along, except for 3. Fuck
Yeah. 3 is the bastard here. And, you know,
3's just like 1, so it's like at the bottom.
Yeah, just, but 3 was a little better than 1.
Each of the previous 5 games, though, they built upon each other, and they were basically the same exact story. 6 took a detour.
Yeah, it did. It
doesn't deal with crystals and like the youth saving the world. Although it is the youth saving the world, it's not the same structure as the previous 5 entries.
Right.
And it stands apart that way, and it also improved because of that.
Yeah, it didn't feel as scripted in a way. Like, you knew it was going to happen. Like, well, this is going to happen. He's going to find the crystals. He's going to fucking break the crystals.
Crystals are going to be broken.
Shit's going to go bad. We're going to kill him.
He's going to get huge, and you have to go fight him.
Right. And I also... There was not a single scene in this game that felt completely out of place in the story. Not at least to me. So it all just worked perfectly. And that's why I like it more than 4.
Very, very cohesive
right.
game.
Everything felt natural, and it was
good
damn
game.
good.
Yeah.
I kind of hate myself for not playing it before now. There's so many good ones, and
see, now we got the war against 6 and 7 upon which is the best Final Fantasy. We're gonna play 7.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it is.
Of course,
I did just play 7 a few months ago. But at the moment, I'm in love with 6 more than 7, but 7 does have very good parts.
It does.
The whole game's good, actually. But so is 6.
Right.
It's hard to really compare them, but we'll compare them when we get to 7.
Of course, we have to.
Let's go on to our tactics you might need. Final Fantasy VI edition.
And addiction, too.
Addiction. I can't even.
Final Fantasy
VI
edition.
Edition?
Edition, yes.
It's like an online version?
Yes.
I guess this is an online radio show.
It is. So it's like an radio show.
Tactics you might need. Let's go.
When you start gonna boss you just a bit, you know you need your best. Because looking for items that you see.
You know we'll help you out with some tactics you might need.
All right, so first up is from our forum guest, Batman. And
he's not a guest. He has an official thing, but I think he put a guest account before he
did he?
made a real account, yeah.
Okay, whatever. But he says, here's a helpful trick to get your party. I said I wasn't going to say that anymore.
Okay, it's Batman.
It's silent. The T is silent. Second T.
One of the T's.
That's true. It's not just Batman. That's great.
Okay, go ahead.
So he says, here's a helpful trick to get your party ready for Kefka's Tower in FF6.
Which we used,
right.
by the way.
After you start in the World of Ruin and begin finding your party members, you may notice that they are underleveled, or do not have the magic spells necessary to take on some of the game's later challenges by any means. In order to level up your characters, one of the best places in the game is in a forest east of Narsh on the northeast part of the continent. The shape of the forest is similar to a dinosaur's head, although I saw kind of like a tiny little dinosaur.
I don't know.
It looks like a dinosaur, okay?
I don't think it looks that much like a dinosaur, but he's not the only one to say that. Because when I was looking at this tactic, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure where this place is, and it also stated that it looks like a dinosaur's head. I'm like, it doesn't. I got there and I was like, this is not a dinosaur's head.
I think it looks kind of like a dinosaur, but I don't know. I'm kind of blind. But it says there are some difficult fights against dinosaur-type enemies in this forest if your party isn't quite strong enough. But this is a great place to gain XP, and it's really good for late game. So, like, right before Kefka.
Right, exactly. And by the way, thank you, Batman. It's weird saying that. I did use this.
welcome.
I went to the dinosaur forest, I think is what it's called on the Final Fantasy wiki. And there are tyrannosaurs there. They give you about 2,200 experience each. And if there's 2 of them in a battle, it's 4,400 experience. And when you're in the like the 40 level range, you level up every like 8,000 levels. So you just basically have to go through like 2 or 3 fights with those things. You level up.
Right.
It's nice.
And going along with this tactic, if you remember earlier in the game, right before you get the airship again from Setzer, there's that little puzzle where you find an empty tombstone and it's like, do you want to write something? And then you press X and he's like, nothing comes to mind. And I'm like, okay. And then later you find tombstones and it has a message encrypted very simply that's the world is square. And if you go back and type that on the empty tombstone in that area, it will give you a hint on where a hidden item is. And it's like the bottom.
It's like the bottom floor.
Yeah, B3, even though it doesn't say B3 when you walk in, which is a pain in the ass. And on the left side, and it is an XP egg.
It's a hidden hallway there.
Right. It's those things they love to do in the old ones where there's a wall that's gone that the fucking sprite can tell, but you can't.
The sprite can see it, but your god view is like, meh.
That is what is weird to me now that I'm thinking about it. It's like, they fucking see it. They know it's there, but they don't want to tell us. Anyway,
Terra, talk to me.
Yeah. Speak to me. And you go in there, you open up the chest, and it's got the experience egg, which is what are those things?
It's a relic.
Relic that you equip, and it doubles your freaking XP. So if you want to make one character really fucking awesome near the end, like I did, you throw that on Edgar, preferably, and go into that dinosaur
Edgar
forest.
for you. I'd put it on Terra.
Would you?
Yeah.
Terra can do
Her
some
magic damage is disgusting.
True. Or Celes if you went Celes main, because Celes can do a shitload of physical damage, too.
Celes was my second one. I had my party basically the whole time was Terra, Celes, Edgar, and Sabin.
Mine was...
Sabin was the gimp, but Sabin was always there.
Sabin got pretty good near the end, but yeah, his move started to
Sabin
fall
was
off.
nice because I think he was the one who had life 3 on him.
Nice.
So I used Sabin.
Yeah,
for support.
My final beef party was Edgar, Sabin, Terra, and Shadow. Because Shadow, being 7 levels below Edgar, had 700 more hit points. So he was a tanky fucker. That was pretty sweet. So yeah, I threw on the XP egg, went to that dinosaur island, and you're getting 8,800 XP when it's 2 dinosaurs.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing you did after I learned about the experience egg. Before then, I did go on the dinosaur island and level up a little bit.
Okay.
Another great place. This is a great place to level up. And if you use the Vanish Doom trick on the dinosaurs, they just so fast.
Right.
They're just gone. And they are powerful enemies, so you can't have them hang around for too long anyway, because otherwise they'll kill you.
Yeah, Meteor and like Holy and shit like that, or what was the other one?
I can't remember what the spell they used. Oh, it was like a tri-attack, they called it, when the 2 Tyrannosaurs were on each side of you, and it'd do like 1,200 damage. And you're on like level 40, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah, they're rough.
Yeah, and so you got to get rid of them fast. I'd use the Vanish Doom trick on them.
Okay, so
Honestly.
it's pretty effective.
I think the Vanish Doom trick you can't use in late versions of Final Fantasy VI, like the Game Boy Advance. I don't think you can use that.
Yeah, I think I read.
But
they
if you're
fixed it.
playing the anthology version like we were, or the Super NES version, go ahead.
Do it.
Just do not use it. I think the wiki said don't use it on Boon Baba, or else you'll break the game.
Yeah.
Like completely. Like it won't function correctly after that,
Wow.
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, just don't save.
Okay, he also had another thing here. He says if magic points are needed, there's a desert just outside of Miranda that has a cactrot, as we talked about, or cactar, enemies which give you 10 magic points when you defeat them. As is the case with other FF games, they are difficult to hit. Just use attacks such as Edgar's Drill or Sabin's Blitzes. There is also another enemy which you counter in the desert that can wipe out your party with sandstorm type attacks. Yeah, that's true. They are a little harder, but here's the trick to killing them fast, and then he talks about the Vanish Doom trick, basically, which I guess is Vanish X Zone in his version. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Doom for us. Wasn't
It's
there an
Doom for
X-Zone
us.
spell for us too?
No, there was an X something, but it wasn't X zone. I can't.
X-Zone. It should be the end zone, if anything.
The N zone.
Dude, it'd be sweet if you cast them into the end zone, and then next time when you played 5, it like remembered the data from your
That'd
memory
be
card,
awesome.
and that shit was in there.
That would be awesome.
Except for then you'd have to fight all the dragons in 5 to get through the end. But that would be sweet.
Well, if I had the power I did at the end of 6 and 5, I would be a lot easier.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, I had Gil, so who needs magic when you got Gil? Am
Right.
I right?
There was a Gil toss ability in this game. GP toss.
Yeah, there was, but it wasn't that great.
No, it was like 1,800, 2,000 damage.
Right.
It was in place of Setzer's basic attacks.
Now, about these Cactar things outside of Miranda, I did go and try this. They are worth 10 magic points, and that's nice. However, there are enemies in the last area of the game that are also worth 10.
Right.
So I would rather level up in the last area simply because the enemies around there, you don't really hit the Cactrots that often.
They're pretty rare.
Plus, they do a lot of damage, and even though they only have 3 hit points, you miss like 99% of the time. You do have to use, like he says here, special abilities like Edgar's Drill or Sabin's Blitzes. I think the only thing that would hit him for me, I think Aura, whatever that.
Aura Bolt.
Aura Bolt, yeah, that would work. And then, of course, Edgar's Chainsaw.
Right.
Is what I use.
Which is the drill one that he's talking about.
And
They changed the name.
another tactic you might need is how to get the chainsaw. You got to go to Zozo in the World of Balance, and there's a clock that is asking you for the time. The time, you get hints about the time through people around the town, but that town at that point in the game is kind of a pain to walk around.
It is, yeah.
There's a lot of status effects. Was that the town that, like, it was either zombie or imp was just being spammed at you the whole time?
Yeah, it was one of them.
I think it might have been zombie. But anyway, the clock time is 6 hours, 50 minutes, and 10 seconds.
Right.
Just
you want that.
future reference. 6, 50, 10. Guys, remember that.
You need this ability. It's
And then
sweet.
it'll open up a secret hallway. You'll go up there, get the chainsaw ability, which is Edgar's. It's the best ability that we found. He might have other abilities in the game, but we didn't find any.
You found a couple. You had like Sound Blaster and a few others, but I didn't even find those.
Yo,
for
you
some
buy
reason.
those.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I didn't buy them.
I can't remember where I bought them. It was early in the game, though.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't that great.
Yeah, and the auto crossbow was godly.
Auto crossbow was great for, like, the first third of the game.
Yeah, and then it fell off, but chainsaw does not fall off. Chainsaw does a lot of
It
damage.
levels up with Edgar.
Yeah, it does damage the entire time.
Plus, he gets to put on that awesome Friday the 13th mask.
Yeah, which is another sweet
Hockey
little
mask.
Easter
And then
egg.
it, like slams the guy with the...
Yeah, if it hits when he puts that on, it's a kill. That's what that is. It's
Yeah.
insta-death.
Or it's a miss.
Or it's
often.
a miss, yeah.
It's his ability that misses a lot.
It
though.
sucks because if it's a boss, it won't do it because it won't insta-kill a boss because that's cheap. Although, so is Vanished Doom, but it doesn't stop that, right?
And Batman goes on to talk about another boss that the Vanish Doom trick works on. I would just say don't use the Vanish Doom trick on bosses because, the Foon Baba, if you do that, I guess it breaks the game. And then I think there's another boss that messes things up when you use it. So
I remember reading, but I don't remember who.
plus late in the game, you can't even use the trick on the bosses except for the dragons.
Right.
So
That's
just
the
use them on the
last.
dragons.
Yeah, you can't use it on the stone? Oh, no, you can't. They won't vanish. I tried.
Like, if I could Vanish Doom my way to Kefka, I would have. Because
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome. But I guess it's cheating, because I guess it's a glitch.
That's okay. They didn't fix it, right? So, yeah, thank
Exactly.
you for your input,
Yes.
Batman.
Thank you very much, Batman. I think we have some questions we got to answer, right?
Oh, yeah, we do. There are a few.
Questions for us. We would like to hear from you. You to a moment. Or contact us on Twitter. Get on and ask your questions. We'll answer them within a week. This is the question segment. Ask and you will receive.
Okay, so we're gonna go a little off topic here and stop talking about 6 because our questions of the week, none of them have to do with 6, unfortunately, that we can find.
Right.
There might be something in Twitter somewhere, but our first question here comes from Ren FM on our forum under Road Trip Worthy. He says, it's a he, right? Yeah. He says, I'm about to go on a road trip and I'm using this time to grind either FF5 or FF6 on a handheld. My question is FF worth putting time into when you're away from the couch? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I figure it is. I mean, we've talked about how we prefer the standard sit-down playing of a Final Fantasy just because we're afraid that they're going to go super mobile on us if we don't. But I would play a game if I had a ton of time on a road trip. I mean, I did. I had FF3 on my Kindle, and I played it.
Yeah, if I wasn't always the guy who drives, I would be the one. I would probably be playing a little bit of 6. If I had played 6 on PSP, I would have done that.
Right. Well, the only
if there was an edition on PSP that was like the 4 with the HD 2D graphics,
dude, it's killer.
It's sweet, and I wish there was a version out like that for 6. I know there's the Game Boy Advance version, but
right, and
I don't have a Game Boy.
There's a Android version too, but it's not very loved. Apparently, Christian, one of our other friends that's kind of playing along with us, he says the controls are pretty damn clunky for the Android. Yeah, so it's kind of a letdown.
So yeah, I think 6 is a better game than 5, but I do love 5 too. So play what you want.
Yeah, I say play 6 so you can play 7 with us, right?
Right, yeah, play along with us. I know some other people were playing 6 with us, right?
He was one of them.
Was he one of them?
Yeah,
okay.
he was posted a little while ago that he just barely got out of Narsh, so.
Awesome. We also have another question here on our forum from a new member, Womble619. He's talking about Final Fantasy 15. He says, what do you guys reckon? Will this be the end of the line if it fails? Have you heard rumors about... I have heard rumors, Womble619, about FF16 already being in development. Perhaps Detective Joe could get on the case.
Is that your nickname now?
I don't know if he's actually referencing me.
I say you make it his nickname, but
Detective Joe. My detectiveness is me searching for Final Fantasy news before we had to put out an episode.
On Google and clicking the news tab. So really, anyone could be a Detective Joe.
I don't know about FF16. The only thing I've ever heard is that they were going to have FF16 be more of a traditional Final Fantasy after Final Fantasy 15.
Right.
When Final Fantasy 15 was initially announced, when they turned it from Versus 13 into 15.
Right, I heard that as well.
And that's the only thing I've heard about 16. It probably already is in early development.
Right, I'm sure it is. They are always tinkering.
Unless they're going to pull a 14 where they like develop it for like a year and then put it out.
And then it's horrible. And then the remake is godly.
Right. So, end of the line if it fails. If it fails bad, it is. But I doubt it's going to fail.
I don't think Square will be done. Like, I don't think it'll destroy the company necessarily, but I think Final Fantasy might be at its end.
It might be taking a break if it really does bad.
At the very least, taking a break. I don't see them completely abandoning the series. I know we've talked about this before, and it is an issue, and the company has acknowledged that.
A lot of people are excited for Type 0, so Type 0 should do well.
Type 0 looks good, all right? The awesomeness of that cutscene thing we watched is it's pretty exciting for me, so at least that one should do well, and I kind of feel like they may go super mobile if it doesn't work, which is kind of the end of the line for us because...
Yeah, I'm not interested in them going like a handheld route with the Dragon Quest games that they did. And if they do that for Final Fantasy, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, we'll probably play them still, but I don't know.
No, if Final Fantasy 16 is DS only,
I don't want.
I'm going to be like, fuck that.
I'm not going to get it.
I want to watch this because there's supposed to be these big, gorgeous games, and I want to watch it on as big of a screen as possible.
Yeah, it's just like a movie.
Right.
I mean...
Screw watching a movie on an iPod.
Yeah, I've done that, but it sucks.
I watch movies that I've already seen before on an iPod.
Oh, okay.
Because then it's like, when you have the... Whatever. We're talking about movies now. But,
It doesn't feel like as grand of a scope, so it won't be the same experience.
It won't be the same. It needs to stay on the consoles.
Yeah, or PC.
So go out and buy 15 when it comes. It looks like it's gonna be good anyway. Why all the naysaying before it happens? You know.
Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of naysaying on the internet, and the game isn't even out.
Yeah, and
I know 13 was a disappointment. 14 was definitely a disappointment.
now they fixed it.
Yeah, they remade 14. And
a lot of people love it.
Exactly. There's a 14 convention going on this weekend in Vegas.
Yes, there is.
We were gonna go to it, but now we're just gonna go to Vegas and hand out cards.
Yeah, so we're kind of gonna be there. If you guys want to, see us in our sad state. I'm thinking of kind of trying to get in, being like, yeah, Ultimate Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast.
Oh, you've heard of us, right?
Yeah. I bet you, dude. We're gonna try to get in. Okay, I'm gonna be like that. I'm gonna be like, VIP, hello.
It's a casino, man. They don't take bullshit that well.
They'll just kick us out.
They'll get some big black security guard to take us out.
Oh boy.
Come here, boys.
Yeah. No, dude. Ultimate.
Come on.
Oh man. Anyway, yeah. So I think it would be pretty rough if it does bad, but it'd have to do super bad, like you said. I mean, it'd have to be like the movie bad, like freaking Spirits Within,
right?
Esque horror.
There hasn't been any that I know of financial things that have come out for how much the game has cost. I suspect it probably has cost a lot up till now, but you're looking at it. What if this fails? And I've seen other things like what if Final Fantasy 15 fails? We've talked about this before on the show. It shouldn't fail. Whenever a new trailer comes out for this game, people freak the fuck out. Yeah, I've never seen Final Fantasy trending on my news bar on Facebook, but I saw it when like the thing came out. That's how I knew about the information.
Right.
I checked my Facebook. I was like, Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, and I mean,
just caught my eye, and I was like, oh, like if it's trending, people are freaking out about the game.
And like we've talked, there's
enough hype.
It might piss off some of the super traditional Final Fantasy people that are like just uber fanboys because they don't like how it looks Kingdom Heartsy or whatever. But that in itself makes it more accessible and more playable for a larger audience. So
right. So it might even make more sales for it.
Yeah, it could. And it's the new gen, and we've talked about this too. The very first one on a new generation always does super goddamn well because it looks beautiful. And at the very least, the game looks great.
Right.
So I don't think it will, but it could be.
I mean, it'd be scary if it does, but I'm gonna go out and play it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get Type 0 to get the freaking demo.
Gotta get a PS4 first. Gosh.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Man, if we weren't going to Vegas, I could afford a PS4. Actually, I need new tires for my car. Never mind. I know what needs to come first. I don't want to die on the road. Oh, man. Okay, so I know we got some questions from Green Mushroom, who, of course, is nice enough to give us a question every single week. I mean, we only have so many listeners on our forums, and, they of course, we welcome the questions from there. But Green Mushroom has given us a question every week, and I just want to say thank you to Green Mushroom. You can go to his website. He has a gaming blog. It's called agreenmushroom.com. Go check it out. He basically gives us a question every week, or at least he has. He doesn't have to, but he has done it for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
And what's his question?
His first one is, well, it's about Bravely Default. He says, question of the week is, what did we think of Bravely Default? But Caleb Craig, the other Caleb, is the only one that's played it. So, I don't know, Caleb, what did you think of Bravely Default?
Hold on, he's coming over here.
I haven't really played that much of it, but the little bit that I played, it was pretty good. I mean, it felt kind of like 5 with its battle system, and you were able to do like 4 different moves per turn. So basically, everybody has like double cast, or like quadricast on them. It's pretty sweet.
So it makes the battle system more customizable? Is that kind of what it goes for?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And then there's like thousands, well, not really thousands, but like 36 different jobs, I think. So
there's a difference between thousands.
Yeah, there's a little bit of difference, like 2 zeros, I think. So, but yeah, it's pretty sweet looking, and the way you get the jobs is by beating people who currently have those jobs.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, like bosses will have certain job classes that you will have to fight, and then like you get those job classes after you beat them.
So that's kind of fun. That's kind of similar to 5 where...
Thanks, Caleb.
Yeah, thank you. But anyway, it's kind of similar to 5 where you get to a certain part and, a crystal is dropped down and you get the jobs. But in this, it kind of makes more sense because you beat someone who knows it and you siphon their knowledge from their carcass. Which is probably not nearly that dark.
I think Green Rushman put that he liked the game, right?
Yeah, I think he said he enjoys it. I've heard
Bravely
good things
Default did start as a Final Fantasy, and we have it on our forums, so it's a game we're going to have to play at some point.
Right, and he says if we haven't played it, which really technically we haven't, his question of the week is, what do we think about the online series? Series or whatever the hell in the Final Fantasy.
The two online Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, how do we feel about it? He says he's more into the traditional single-player Final Fantasy.
And so am I.
Right.
I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah, they're good.
What I've played of 11, the 3 hours, not even 3 hours. It's all on YouTube, whatever I've played of 11. It's really hard to get into. I'll be honest. It's the control system is so overly complicated, and the game I guess it looked good for when it came out, but the game doesn't look that great. I don't know, and it's really empty because no one's there.
Yeah.
I guess people are in the expanded areas, like when you get the expansion packs and you go to those, certain areas that they add to the game, where the players who've been playing that game for 10 years now, they're on that. They're in that area, so like you can't see anybody, you can't find anybody. So that's my experience with 11 is that it's not an MMO for me. And luckily, I have heard that they dwarfed the game so that you don't necessarily need other people to be able to play the single player campaign in the beginning of the game.
Okay.
In other words, the first iteration of Final Fantasy 11, no expansion packs after that. So the main story. You don't need other people because you can hire people to help you in the game.
Oh, well, that's good.
They added that. They added that kind of stuff for people like me who came into the game very lonely.
Yeah, it's like I Am Legend. You walk out.
There are, however, there is a bustling crowd in 14 at Realm Reborn.
Oh yeah,
and I very much liked. I'm on level 15 now. I've played probably 8 hours of 14, and it's just questing right now, but it's pretty fun.
It's gonna be awesome when we all get on it and we're all questing together. That's
what
makes them fun.
Now I'm just giving you a little preview of what's coming up in the series. We're gonna have you guys vote after we play Final Fantasy X. We're gonna have you guys vote on what game we're going on to next, because it's between. We're not sure if we're going to go straight to 12 after Final Fantasy X, or if we should play the main story, or the main, beginning story of Final Fantasy 11 for 100 hours.
Yeah.
And do a review on 11, because it is a main game, and we should play it.
Yeah,
but our knowledge of 11 is very low. I mean, my knowledge of 11, you can go on our YouTube page and see my Let's Plays.
Yeah, that's it for him and me.
That really is it. And, I would like to know more about 11. I would like to get, more knowledge about 11 and thus have the podcast be more of a rounded out thing. And then after 13, maybe play the main quests of 14, which should take another 100 hours. But 12 is going to take 100 hours too. I mean, we're going to have a big section. Those are going to be big, huge games to do. Yeah. So it'll be the audience's. You guys, the listeners, you guys are going to vote on whether we go to 10-2 directly after 10, or we go to 11, or we go to 12.
Right. Yeah.
I want to go to 11, but I know Schweiss is pushing for 10-2.
That's sad to say it that way, but yes. I am pushing for 10-2
so,
because a lot of time.
So, are you guys on Team Joe? Or are you guys on Team Caleb?
Yes, let's make shirts. So anyway...
We got to play 11 at some point.
I know. And the thing is, though, is I'm afraid that 14 is.
Have you played 14 at all?
I've played a little bit, but I know once I get out of the first part, it's going to consume me. So I'm going to be playing the shit out of it.
Yeah, 14 is kind of addicting. It's like the same pattern over and over again too. It's just doing quests, but
It's
like,
sweet.
ooh, I get gold. And like,
Yeah, and I am one of those completionists in a lot of ways, so I'm gonna do like everything that I can. So it's not gonna be just 100 hours. It's gonna be a lot.
well, the idea is that we're trying to do whatever the minimum is so that we can do a review for the game. So
Right.
you just try to stay on the main quests.
and then do the other stuff in my own time, I guess.
Yes.
And I am
After we're done with the main quests.
And I am supposed to be doing the Let's Plays on those, but part of me wants to kind of do all of us playing the game at the same time.
Including the listeners and including
Or-
our friends.
Yeah, at least our friends, at least the group we can kind of control.
You can add me on 14 and 11. I don't mind.
Yeah.
In
add
fact,
us up.
I've put it on the forums. You can add me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that would be really fun, and that way we all get to kind of experience it at the same time, and we
That's
get to do
true.
quests together, and
Yeah.
it makes it easier and more fun. So,
Yeah.
but that's up to you guys, and
Yeah, we'll have you guys vote after 13 also, whether or
Yeah.
not we go to 14.
or 13,
So-
2, and 3. And
I mean, those games are extremely long, so the review will take a long time to get to. But I was thinking we would like write down a plan as far as like we got to get to this. Like I'd look up the quests that are in the order. We got to get to this quest by this day, so that we can get to the end by a certain
right,
time.
and we don't want to make it too brutal because then it can take the fun out of it. So,
Right.
some of those later ones you're gonna probably have to bear with us for a little bit. They're long games, so
They are. So like we're pushing for 6 this time, but 6 was doable. I mean, we can't really push 12 as far as length.
no.
It's so long.
Well, and we're gonna be doing the hunts too. And
yeah, we're gonna be.
you're gonna have to be a high level to take Yzmat out. He is not for the weak. He is pure power in a coliseum.
So I think it's taken us how long has it taken to do 6 after 5? 5 was the 18th of November.
No,
So it's taken us almost 2 months.
it's September or August. You mean if that was 2 months? It's
Oh.
been. I think it's been close to 2 months. I don't think it's been quite that long, but it's definitely been longer than 1 month.
Oh, maybe it's. No, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look and see where we are, because I want to know when we did Final Fantasy V.
It's been a while since we've had a
Since
I
we've
mean-
had like a big episode.
yeah
Yeah.
a real review.
Oh, we had Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals. I call
Oh
that
yeah,
a
you're right.
review.
You're right. That was a real.
Oh, you're right. It has been 2 months. Okay, so it took us 2 months to do 6, which shouldn't have happened.
No,
Sorry.
it's all right. We did do a beautiful job with the game, and it's awesome. So we just wanted to keep it alive.
Yeah,
just take our time and love it.
We're going on to 7 next, though.
Yeah.
And that's a game we're both very familiar with,
Oh yes.
especially you.
Yes.
Even though I beat it faster than you.
Well,
Oh, what was your game time for 6?
it was 28, 46, I think, and yours was 27:11.
Oh, you checked on mine?
Yeah.
Thanks. Because I was like, what was it?
You're like an hour and 34 minutes faster or something like that.
Oh,
so.
sweet. Yeah, so 6 is a little longer than the other ones. I mean, I did everything in 5, so like
I did
5
almost.
is a lot shorter.
I think I did everything but Leviathan in 5.
Mm.
And in 4, I think I missed a couple summons. And in 3, we missed tons of shit.
6 was a great game. And yeah, that's it for questions, I think, this week. If you guys want to ask questions for our next episode, I do not think, I'm sorry, guys, we are not going to have an episode next Sunday because we'll be out of town. But the Sunday after that, the 25th, we'll record an episode, and it should be up on midnight. Okay?
That sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, so, guys, we're going to move on to 7. If you guys are playing along with us, better start going because we plan on beating 7 quick.
Yeah, it's we know a lot about the game, so
Yeah, so let's say a month at the most.
at the very most.
So let's get to it.
All right. Oh, also before we take off, if any of you guys are going to that 14 convention,
Come say hi.
come say hi and forfeit some tickets for us.
We might if we get kicked out or something for handing out cards for our podcast. We might go up to Bonsai up in Salt Lake. No, it's in Layton.
Layton, yeah,
Layton.
in Utah where we live.
In Utah, yeah. Which is a big anime festival, so we might go to that.
Yeah.
Talk to some people who dressed up as Final Fantasy. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll just do whatever we need to. I mean, this weekend we are working on the podcast, but we will not have a podcast episode. So we'll see you guys.
Yeah, enjoy the grind.
This has been another production of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. The show was produced by Joseph DeGollier and Caleb Schweiss, with music and editing by Joseph DeGollier, parodies and clips from their respective authors, of course. You can get all of our episodes as well as our Let's Plays at ultimafinalfantasy.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, as well as our contact page on our website. Be sure to subscribe and review our podcast. Your reviews may get read on the show, and look forward to the next episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast.